Well, I think that we need to learn, in a sense, some of the lessons from our earlier mistakes. We created these huge, rather brutalising housing estates in the heart of London, which themselves effectively created a culture of crime, of alienation, of the sense of being separate from the rest of the community of London. And I think that there are some very interesting ideas out there that I know have been discussed here today about the idea of creating communities based on old street plans. That doesn't necessarily mean that the architecture itself is pastiche, but that it does understand that grid patterns and other squares and crescents of 5-storey buildings, that there's a reason why people did that in Kensington, in Pimlico, in lots of other parts of the city, because they created communities that were human scale, where people felt that they knew where their territory was, where their boundaries were, that they had a garden at the back, that they knew where the shops were going to be and where the transport links were going to be. So I'm hoping that this money can sort of seed corn some transformations of some of the terrible old estates, the 60s estates, the post-war monstrosities, and actually create new Pimlicos for Londoners to live in. I think it's certainly true that there's this sense that these estates were owned by the councils often, that the allocations, i.e. the giving people of a right to a council flat, was also controlled by the council, and you knew where you got your benefits from, and you voted accordingly. But it didn't work. It didn't work for those councils, and it didn't work for those people. They ended up being trapped in places that nobody would want to spend a whole life in. You might want to, it might be okay to pass through, but that was not a place to bring up a family in. And I think that we need a much more mixed set of communities where you've got some people who buy, some people who rent, some people who will stay for the long term, some people who will pass through. I think that's absolutely right. I think that what we had was an almost Stalinist approach to community development in inner cities, not just in London. In Birmingham, there are lots of other examples, and elsewhere in the country. And it just simply didn't work any more than communism worked. Stalinism didn't work in Russia, and it didn't work in inner city London either. I think there's been a slight misunderstanding about affordable housing in Ebbsfleet, which is where we are looking to do the first of these new garden cities, and in any others. It's not that we don't expect there to be affordable housing of a normal and reasonable level integrated into these new communities. Of course we do. It's simply that, as is true now, it's up to local councils and planning authorities to decide and negotiate with developers how much affordable housing and where. We don't set targets nationally for this. This is something that local authorities will decide. But absolutely at the heart of the Garden City principles is the idea that there is housing for a full range of people at different stages of their lives and also at different levels of income. And we're not trying to create any kind of ghetto, either the ghetto for the rich or the middle classes, or for the poor and people on benefits. We're trying to create mixed communities that people can stay within and move up, move into family homes, and then move down, perhaps into sheltered housing for the elderly. That's absolutely the intention behind these communities. I think we do need to refine the idea of affordable housing. It's become a sort of technical term that is attached to particular tenures, registered providers, housing associations and the like. As far as I'm concerned, we want all housing to become more affordable. We want, housing for sale to be more affordable, not less affordable. We want there to be every kind of option for every kind of person at the different stages of their life, and we want all of those to be within reach. That's really what affordability needs to mean, is that it's within reach of working people on ordinary budgets. I think it's true, and I think when the Prime Minister talked about the big society, what he was referring to was a community that has all of the different interests involved, that has voluntary organisations, that has the church, that has different kinds of faith groups, that has businesses, large and small, that has employers, all getting stuck in and understanding that they all benefit from the community working well, and therefore they all have an obligation to actually support the working of that community. And that is a profoundly conservative and ancient view of how human beings live well together.